And so, good morning. There are a couple of topics that I want to talk about real quick. And I don't know if I'm going to share the screen or just have a conversation, but a good timestamp 10/30/2023. It's about 8:34 in the morning where I'm at. The UAW reaches a deal with General Motors, ending their coordinated strike, and that's happening in Detroit. So today's October 30th, and Reuters reports that General Motors and the United Auto Workers reached a tentative agreement. Two sources familiar with the matter told Reuters, or Reuters, however you say it. I'm from the West, I say Reuters, but effectively ending the first simultaneous strike against the Detroit three automakers with record wage and benefit hikes. Ford Motors, Chrysler, who else? I know it was big. They said, okay, according to this report, nearly 50,000 workers out of 150,000 union members joined a series of walkouts that began September 15th. The report goes on to say it cost the Detroit three and suppliers billions of dollars over more than 40 days, so September 15th. So they will return to work after an official announcement. The General Motors spokesperson declined to comment. Still reading the report. The talks had stalled over issues such as pension and how fast temporary workers would get permanent work. They're calling it a win, a victory for unions. They were able to achieve their goal of securing record-setting pay and benefit. Okay. What else? It says Fain must now get the contract ratified by rank and file UAW members. That process began on Sunday, so yesterday. For the first time, the UAW bargained with all three automakers at the same time, using the threat of strikes at key factories to accelerate a bidding war among the companies to avoid a new walkout. So I know getting a third, many people talk about getting critical mass as a sign of power. We need to unify if we all get united. And so in this report from Reuters, it's talking about that in action. And so I know today is October 30th, 2023, and collective bargaining is an example of when you unify. Do you actually need all, or do you need a number? What is your number? And in this case, it was around 50 of 150,000 was their number to actually press the issue and to make a power move happen in real time. Said the strike expanded slowly. Shares of GM were down this morning. Ford shares fell 1.9%. I know they increased a little bit, but then they went back down. I'm looking at that one. The UAW achieved substantial gains in pay and retirement benefits. Okay, they keep saying that. And this same report, it's like what's happening now, as even AI is starting to write reports now, and they are publishing them with the same brands as normal media. So it can still say Reuters on the top, but it's more or less an AI generated report, is so it seems. I know I get that experience when I'm using Bing, but there's a couple of other ones as well. Um, Let me talk about this for a second. I don't know if I should share screen. Let's see where Ford is at right now. Ford is at 975, 974, 975. And the average cost per share when I purchased a share was $12.85 via the Robinhood app. So they've declined $3.10 on an average cost per share for me. While some would say that having collective power is a good thing, economically, there are some adverse impacts. There are adverse impacts economically to that collective bargaining agreement. While 50,000 may be willing to put it all on the line, there are so many millions more who are impacted when they decide to use their collective power. And unionization, or the ability to bring together those folks within those industries and give them a voice and a legal power and an authority that they can actually use as political bargaining chips, they can do that. But the industry itself is vertically, horizontally, all of those are impacted. So I'm looking at Ford, which engages in the manufacture, distribution, and sale of automobiles. It operates through the following segments: Ford Blue, Ford Model E, and Ford Pro, Ford Next, and Ford Credit. CEO is James D. Farley. Employees are around 173,000. Headquarters is Dearborn, Michigan. Founded 1903. So 173,000 employees. And when we talk about power and we need to come together, and if we unify, having 50,000 people say they're willing to walk out, yes, that can be a big deal. And having the benefits and wages and you know, that number impacts so many families. On one end, if you're more liberal, you're saying, well, that's to benefit all of those families and employees and the people who actually work for the company. They are actually fighting back and making a stand. It's a notable cause. Their benefits would be inclusive of whether or not their children have access to the, you know, the high quality. Do they get ortho, or is the premium so high they can't get the ortho this year? Things like that, and how much of that comes out of their pay. Is, you know, when we talk benefits and the benefits of having a job that covers some of those things, you know, it's not just, well, they cover my taxes for me. There's so much more that goes into it. And to improve the quality of life for the families, and their long-term prospects at sustainable economics, you know, their ability to maintain a middle class, whether they're with Ford and working on any of those following segments, that they put the products out into the world, and you know, then the community at large can benefit from it, or whether or not they're just saying this strike was particularly at, you know, the shareholders internal. And I look at it from the lenses, while it does have a negative impact on shareholder value, it brought it down $3. There are ways to which it can still be a good thing. They're flat out, it sucks. Today's high was $10.14 for Ford. The 52-week high for Ford was $15.42. Today's low, $9.68. So the shareholders are the ones who are actually being targeted when they demand, you know, benefits. This story was interesting for me, not only because one share, like I have one share, whoop-de-doo, but also because Ford's was, the American brand, that company, when they were called to testify, their general attitude towards testifying in Congress was, it was so like, huh? It was like, it was kind of flexy. And so their market cap, 39 billion. I know when some people look at what stocks should they invest in, for me on Robinhood, I was like, what stocks are less than like $20? So that was what incentivized me, was strictly on, can I afford to buy a share? And it was less than $20. So yes, Ford was there. So as a shareholder, my opinion might not matter, even though one share might get you a vote or it might get you the information that says whether or not you think it's worth it to be a shareholder for the American Motor Company that manufactures and distributes their automobiles. I had some deeper sentiment with Ford, like the old Ford Mustang and such. So like I was like, if I ever tried to dabble into like stocks or something like that, I would probably look at those companies that I had, any personal attachment. I would want to see them succeed one way or the other. If they decide, to move into the electric vehicle space more aggressively, and their actual like executive board shareholders or those institutional shareholders decide that that's a good move, then we see how that impacts the overall low or the high for what they trade at. Their average trade volume is about 65.97 million. Volume today was around 51 so far, 51.93, so maybe around 52 million trades. Its opening price was $10.08. It is a dividend yield stock, so 12.55%. Their price to earnings 6.53. That means something to people who actually do the trades and such, and that's the information that they want to look at. For me, that was not what was most important. What was most important was that they reached an agreement and that they did have their employees voice heard through the unionization process. For better or for worse, their shareholders are going to have to live with these losses on the books. And many people want to argue that if you do right by your employees, that's the greater good argument, while others would still say, well, economically, if you're losing money to the shareholders, then it's not such a good thing. They've been on strike for 40 days. Resolve the matter. What are they asking for? And so, but yeah, Ford was interesting, and I just wanted to chat about that for a little second. Outside of Ford, there were some other ones that I actually looked at via Robinhood. And Robinhood is an interesting investing tool. It seems pretty straightforward, pretty user-friendly. The losses are there and they're very plain. The wins are there, the gains are there. They're pretty plain. They got the nice little charts for the 24-hour market. They show you what the market value is for the shares pretty easily. Like if you want to share it, it seems pretty straightforward, 2 clicks. I don't know why people would say we need a black app for one of these, like people who say Black Wall Street. And so essentially, I would argue that at some point, if what they would be arguing is that if there was a way, and let's just use our black brain trust minds, where the businesses that are doing right by Americans, more or less, this is Ford we're talking about, and that were brought to the negotiating table, and they had to throw their hands up and say, you got it. And while others would say, well, there's a history of them denying this benefit that even made this all the more necessary. That, let me look at it from a 5-year perspective, because there's a lot more information that can be gleaned. 5-year information back, we can just look at January 14th, 2022, the Ford Motor was sharing at $25.19 per share. January 14th, 2022, it was $25.19 per share. Today it's less than 10, $9.75. I can go back to times where they had dropped even lower, though, within the 5-year span. $5.63, $4.24 on April 3rd, 2020. So it's a pretty user-friendly app right there, that Robinhood app. I'm not gonna lie, that Robinhood app is pretty user-friendly. I would talk about Robinhood more, except I'm losing. So, people don't want to hear that. Like even if I did just do a morning segment that just talked about, like, because I do have a lot of like American company or American stocks. It's not like Black First, or I'm one of those people where I don't realize the There are people who jump to this whole black fantasy land where we are in isolation from, we're not American citizens. For me, I would love to just talk about the stocks that I picked and talk about them, but most of these bad boys ain't even winning. So I would be talking shit about them. And then for the other way, white people don't like when you talk bad about them in their spaces. I don't know if, Beyonce would be, impressed with me talking shit about these white companies while their stocks are going down. And I'm the dumbass nigga who thought that, stocks would be the way to save a couple of dollars. So I might as well talk shit about these white companies. Hey, you know which one that actually stood out to me though was Cart. I thought Cart was going to move. They had a recent IPO and they actually moved in the negative. And I thought they were going to move by association. And so that was just my dumb way of applying logic to economics in ways that it shouldn't. But in a sense, or in a nutshell, they all knew each other. And those who were a part of that circle of like Google, and they were making these apps and such, they were running in a space to where it was like, okay, this app seems to make sense. It has a pretty good market, it has a good demographic. It's like it expedites the checkout process and the delivery process for local markets and such. And so I thought it was a pretty good move. I was willing to pay $35 a share. If I look at it on Robinhood today, that bad boy done dropped. I don't know if $25 was the last time I checked on it. I mean, it's one share. And in this case, I was like, well, let's check out. Let's be a little bit more risky because that's the game of stocks. I was like, well, let me look at this IPO and let me try to get an IPO. It took 3 attempts to actually even get the locked in number. And it locked in at around $30 per share. And so let me take a quick peek at that one too, because there are a couple of more. I'll just run the name. And if anybody is interested in the chat and learning more about it, again, there's also some Canadian companies. So I didn't know it as much as like people who used to follow Boyce Watkins. I know he used to talk about marijuana stocks, but the marijuana stocks that seem to be on the market, the ones that seemed like more readily accessible are Canadian companies. And so Canada is the one who's kind of seemingly doing their thing. And then they're still kind of held back by Congress in the same way when Ford had to go and address Congress, they were nonchalant about it. Canada doesn't owe American Congress a representation. And so the companies there that stand to benefit the most, some of their stocks are so fucking affordable. It was like, shit, I might go on and get me a little 100-pack of these. And so I did make that decision. But let me read off a couple of these ones that I did actually look at. And I know there was a while where I was at that, well, let me just watch stocks. And then I eventually pulled the trigger and said, well, let me do this whole Robinhood thing. And so let's look at a couple of, I'm just going to read the list. And if you're interested in hearing any more about them, just drop it in the chat. But I went and saw Walmart. I'm looking into Apple. I'm looking into Amazon. And when I say looking into, I mean like 1 share, 2 shares, nothing serious like that. Like these people who are super flexers and they can buy 100-pack of Amazon. Let me make sure I got it on the right thing before I say something dumb. I might be speaking on how much equity I have in it versus what is their actual trading price today. So let me make sure I have it on the right one. So investing. All right. Sheesh. Right. See, I was going to talk about equity. This app is freaking phenomenal. It has the symbol, it has the shares, it has the price. Then it tells you the average cost. So what I paid for it when I purchased. So whenever I pulled the trigger and say, yeah, let me get one. And again, I was just checking it out. Total return. And then the equity part. So the total return is probably what most people would be interested in. And getting to that point, there are people who know how to do this to the point where they short stocks and they know when to put and they know when to call. I'm not one of those people. There are many other places where you can get that information. Again, I didn't believe that stocks would be a pathway to anything. I didn't think that it was a way to actually sustain based on a dollar. I thought they were lying. And so when I look at what I put into the Robinhood app versus what it says my equity is, right now I'm taking an L. So fuck it. I didn't want to talk about this shit. But here you go. There's AMC, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Alphabet, Class C, so Google. And then there's Walmart, Snap, Campbell Soup. I love that one. I'm hoping somebody asks me, why the hell did you get a Campbell Soup stock? It's cold season, man. I be having the stupidest rationale for why I want to buy a stock. And Campbell Soup can get you through some hard times, man. If you don't know about Campbell Soup, I told you when I pick stock, I be picking with my heart, not my pocket. I would just be like, this is who I want to win sometimes. And Campbell Soup was that one where I was like, let me get one share just so I can know how they doing. And so whenever I check my Robinhood app, I can look and see how Campbell Soup is doing. And it may not be like that. Like stocks may not be the relative strength of a company's economics. It may not tell the full picture, which is why actually saying, okay, I bought one share is a way of being able to do that research and then see how the company is actually doing economically. I can actually click on it and then get all the news and updates and set alerts and so forth if they're doing bad. If I wanted to go into like day trading, which I don't have the attention span for that shit. Anybody who can do day trading is way beyond me. I am far too long-winded for day trading. So other than Campbell Soup, I know nobody asked for that one, but I selected that one because Campbell Soup can get you through some cold seasons, and I am not a cold weather person. There's also Meta Platforms, and that one was more or less, I wanted to see how they recover after this settlement. So one share. It's a losing proposition so far, but not by much. So it has tax center as the way that they code it. And so, yeah, based on the taxes, what would be reported on taxes is $306.58. But then today it's at like $304.02. So that one, I actually did feel like I had to work towards getting my courage up to even buy one total share. And I'm looking at it now. Like I saw Wells Fargo, they came out with an app that also does it allows trades where they even have partial trades now via Wells Fargo. So they're making it more accessible to get into stocks. I don't want to say just common typical Negro Naker shit, but I was like, man, when you work for a company that has 401k and they'll tell you they'll match that much and do all this so forth, you'd be like, okay, just let other people do it. I don't want to do it myself. It was like the microwave solution is just to let Fidelity do all of this shit, and they got all the work, and they don't even have to tell you why they're losing, when they're losing, or what they're losing until they've actually lost it. Next thing you know, you be done lost. And it's like, well, what was happening? You can try to watch closer if your attention span is that good. But again, I'm a drifter. So after Campbell Soup, there was Intel. Again, the computer, I thought they were like computer chips. I thought they made good computers at one point or something along those lines. But once you click on the company, you find out what they actually specialize in. Um, Ford, that was 1.167 shares. It was less than $20. So I was like, yeah, I got to get one of those. And I was proud about these ones too. So don't knock me, man. Instacart, I thought that one was I thought it has some legs, but it's down to 25.76. So I've lost like almost $5. It went down like $25 at one point. I was like, whoa. But again, I was willing to pay $35 to find out how they're going to do in this market, because it's just again like an app. Like they created an app and people liked it. Facebook, he created an app and people liked it. Facebook was like pictures, and then it just turned into information sharing, and then now it's so much more. Instacart seemed like a good way to make a payment and get your food delivered. I mean, there's other ways to have food delivered. I remember Jenny Craig. I thought Jenny Craig was going to be a thing in the weight industry, and what it essentially was a way to distribute a product and pay for that product that they were going to distribute to you. So that's kind of like my rationale for Instacart. Um, Wells Fargo actually did add one of those ones. Synchrony Financial is another bank. Cisco Systems, which is another, I wouldn't even know how to begin to describe Cisco and why I actually selected it. But I thought it used to be Cisco Information Systems, and that they were in the business of connectivity. And that's the short way of saying it. Disney is similar to me, but they were in the business of licensing. But they were still along the same rails of entertainment or just dissemination of information. So financial information is the dissemination of information. That's the only reason why I would invest in any of the banking platforms. By whatever brand name they use, they only disseminate banking information. That's their function in American society. They fulfill that need for people. They expedite it. They microwave transactions. Cisco, I thought, was a system for just information. I didn't even know who their partners was. At one point, I thought they were military grade, but then, public grade. I thought they might be for education systems. Who knows what Cisco actually does? But I thought it was information sharing nonetheless. Disney is the same. Walt Disney, they share information, which is licensed information or creative arts. There's always going to be a space for creative arts to be shared. So that one was another one. Boeing. Let me get into some of the big ones though. Like the big one that I thought was important was NVIDIA. And NVIDIA was one where it's also hurting more than it benefits. So there's people who can talk about it towards long-term gains, who can actually look at it and break it down why what's happening is happening. But one share of NVIDIA, I thought it would be worth having access to their information, but it costs $455. I'm talking about car notes, like put together, me and wifey together. Like, damn, for one share, I'm like, sheesh, what do you actually do? NVIDIA. So that was an important one. I think for the long term, it might have some impact, but as a trader, I would have been a dumbass the way that I did it. When I bought it, I should have said this trade is going to go down. Nigga, like if I could have bought it and said 2 thumbs down, it would have been the right thing to do at that time. That mug went from $455.20 to $410. I'm talking about $47. And that might not be a lot to people who got it like that. But if you're only working in fractions, like you only came in and said, well, let me get 100 shares of this because I can only afford the fraction. And you were the person who said, I think it's going to go down. And it went down $47. You were winning. So the opposite of me on Robinhood app, you were doing good, my dude. Like if you knew how to do this shit, you were doing good. I'm gonna just say it that way. And this one's gonna hurt too because it was even more affordable. But those people who believe in that motherfucker white boy Elon Musk and what he's doing with Tesla, $272 is when I thought it was a good time to say, man, let's go on and do it. $272 is groceries for some people. Like that's what they was finna eat. I'm talking about that's their whole gas allowance. But that was one share of Tesla. Now I think it is again one of those ones where I was like, this might be important in the future. I would rather see them succeed with the e-vehicles. They are more direct with what they want to do with the conservation and save the planet and all of that stuff with the e-vehicles. Don't get it wrong. They are still about profit. And so I think that it would have been sickening for anybody who signed up at or who bought the share where I bought it at 272, unless they were the opposite of me or smarter than me, whatever way you want to say it, because it went from $272.45 down to $199.30. Boy, if you were the one who said, just give me 100, no, if you were the one who said, let me get 1,000 fractional shares of this because I need to give this share 3 thumbs down, and you were able to come in and buy them and say, I'm going to hold this because I think this is going to flop, man, I done lost $75 damn near fucking with Tesla. One share, and I done lost $75 already. Can you imagine? Man, I'm like, God, I'm taking so many L's on this shit. I didn't even want to talk about it. But I got to talk about this shit, man. This shit hurt. If I was smarter, I would have been one of the people who said, before I get into stocks, I want to learn a little bit more. But I got to tell y'all about a couple of other ones because I name dropped earlier. And there's a lot of people who think that I just be saying shit just to be saying it and it don't make sense. They be like, Moses, you sound high. Y'all should have been saying that shit to Boyce Watkins because Aora Cannabis, ACB, 200 shares, that motherfucker was like 80 81 cents when I came in. So just thinking logically, I'm like, man, 81 cents, man, the federal government, they talking about, the banking system is talking about regulations. They're talking about rescheduling it and so forth. They have to do banking because they're taxing the shit out of it. They can tell you how much they're taxing it and how much taxation dollars it is, but they won't allow the banks to process it. Man, Aora, 81 cents. And then I looked at this motherfucker today, 43 cents. I said, damn, I can't win when I'm trying to pick dollar stocks. I threw my hat off at that one. That would have been a table bang moment. But my heart, my pride and joy, it didn't let me stop there. PayPal, not Team PayPal, give me 5 shares, not 1 share, not 2. Give me 5 shares at $70.21. I looked at that mug today, $50. I done lost dub on every share I bought. Boy, that shit hurt, dub. Man, I don't even want to put it in percentages. That shit hurt. And last but not least, Canopy Growth, CGC, 550 shit. Man, I can't stop losing with this motherfucker. 85 cents. So it's less than $1. I'm like, man, come on, bro. You can't keep going down. You can't keep losing. You can't keep losing. I looked at that motherfucker today and it's 52 cents. I done lost $185 on Canopy Growth. That's why I don't talk about stocks. There were people who would have listened to Boyce Watkins talking about that Canopy shit, talking about all them marijuana stocks. I got 5 on it, talking about e-vehicles and shit, talking all of this shit just to watch the motherfuckers fail in our face. Man, they be smiling, but they don't talk about the L's people take. They don't talk about their L's. And that's why you got to side eye some of them niggas, man. This shit hurt. Man, I'm losing so much money on my Robinhood. I feel like they robbing me. And I'm B1 Brother Moses. I didn't share the screen, but that's my time, man. I'm going to let y'all get back to y'all day, man. Have a good one. Happy Monday. Salute. Well, let me just say, if you want me to talk about stocks more, yeah, I could probably talk about it. But again, they don't like it when you talk about the white people. I'm just going to throw that out there like that. They will let me go on and on talking about black people. But the day I get serious about talking about these stocks and about the companies and all of that, yeah. Oh, my bad. I'm enjoying the high usage of the MF word and the F word. My bad. They just started coming out because I'm looking at the numbers and the numbers were going down and down and down. And if you saw the screen, only thing about sharing my screen, while the people who are with me know my name, it's not good for public space for me to actually share my name like that. But I'm not an institutional investor and all of that. Those are the stocks. If you want to know more about any of those, feel free to let me know. And we could talk shit about any of them motherfucking companies because they ain't doing me no motherfucking good right now. Now, I could have talked good about the top ones because, yes, those ones that I mentioned before I started coming unhinged, doing the B1 Brother Moses, those ones were actually performing. And so you can rewind and see which ones those were and where they're at. All right, man. So again, I'm B1 Brother Moses. Thank y'all for rocking with me. I know every about 2 weeks I come on and drop some information. We got content that we could share about other stuff. YouTube is not real life. They try to make it seem like being a YouTube content creator is not a validating experience. But if somebody is giving you their energy and their time, it's not a character. There are some people who put on characters all day, every day. I don't think that people would like my personality. I got the driest humor. I'm dark humor. I be saying some of the most off the cuff, off the wall shit. Man, I get to talking about my own personal experience. You can hear my trauma seep out when I was a young wart. I'm talking Lion King days come out every once in a while. My authentic self, there's been times where I have to suppress my authentic self because, again, these public spaces may be ready for everything else but an authentic person like myself. And that's my struggle. And so, again, I'm B1 Brother Moses. I'm fighting through it. I'll see y'all in another 2 weeks unless somebody else got some content that they would like to drop. Y'all know where I'd be at, man. We got content. We can deliver on any subject they want to talk about. No, we didn't rock with B1. We didn't rock with that B1. Boyce Watkins then went on and tried to buy out so many different black women's platforms. I gotta say it. I didn't just get y'all riled up for the emotion and energy. Sorry, it won't leave. My spirit is still here. Boyce Watkins tried to assume the role of B1 from a managerial position by co-opting the YouTube platforms of real women And he was using a message about stocks and investing, and his primary one was these marijuana stocks. And they're so affordable in stocks, and you can do the affordability, and you can start thinking about long-term wealth building strategies. And man, I tell you, if I was the opposite of me, if I was smarter, betting against Boyce Watkins would have been the move. And then people would have had more success financially. If they knew how to short and put and do those call options against those marijuana stocks, then yes, they would have did well. And there were so many others that I mentioned that y'all can revive on in this stream. But I was talking that shit. I got that off though. I had to get it out. I had to, in a most professional and stewardess way that I could. The Robinhood app, while I do recommend it, it is user friendly. There are stocks that are very tempting that you would want to buy in. There are many reasons to which a stock might be attractive to you, but being a shareholder, having one share, having a vote, its significance still has to go up against the headline story of Ford. Collective bargaining, coming together, and that share itself, the shareholder, it has an adverse impact. While they would say, well, we're doing the greater good for as many of us as we can. And we know it's Michigan, so we're not against our families in Michigan. We know that the middle class family and withholding and trying to sustain that middle class family in Michigan is vital. They came together, they fought for it, they got their solution, they hashed it out, and they did give us a primary example in real time of collective bargaining. And there are very real consequences. Shareholder value did go down, but at the same time, they were getting their benefits, and they were getting their, that's when I think of benefits, I think of the ability for a father to provide and to protect. And there will be those things like accidents that happen, and benefits are supposed to be there to cover when those accidents happen in life. And if they just now getting to the point of their company saying, yes, we need to expand our benefits to be more inclusive, then we should celebrate that victory with them, other than just looking at the stock value. The stock value of the B1 network is a lot more than just saying there were women who had platforms, they had personality, they had character. YouTube was their life. And for them to devote their time and space to that, and to not be fairly compensated, or to have their voice muted underneath his leadership, and he wants to, I'm going to hold some type of ceremony and give awards and stuff. No, it's not about the ceremony or the award banquet, sir. It's disrespectful. People, when they take those L's and owning up to those L's, that's full transparency. And we know he's caught up now in one of the bigger ones now, or he's not caught up. He's I don't know. I don't know what to think of Boyce Watkins, but it does make the B1 moniker that much more, do you side eye it? The B1 moniker also went towards like Brother Ben X, and they were looking more towards the land acquisition and how they were moving. But he was also talking about digital real estate as being a forward way of thinking. And so there are people who can have the conversation in different intellectual ways. The question is, will they be willing to hold their L's when called out by the other people who are just like them in society? I'm taking I told y'all today's stream was a L. Somebody said I use Stash. Stash is another one, man. I got to get into it. People have been mentioning it, that there are other things that we should do and take advantage of, and that we should use them and leverage them and try to get the best out of them. It's not his fault that I didn't take the next step and learn what it takes to actually manage the day-to-day of being a stock trader. One thing that I will call out is that there are certain penalties on Robinhood, and I don't know what that number is, if you're like a gold member, or if there's any waivers, if you're a veteran, or if there's just like a hard set economic, that is the thing, where like if you spend $25,000 with them, then it's okay to be a day trader. But if you don't spend $25,000 with them, then it's not okay to be a day trader. You'll just keep having to take those losses as well, and on top of penalties. So again, there are some nuances to being a stock trader. And then that's trust. You are trusting with your dollar that company to actually perform to whatever it is standard, whether you think they're going to do better or worse. And there are some people who are good at saying, I think these American companies are going to do worse based off of seasonality, based off of, things like political climate, unions being a democratic thing, the unionization, or the tort reform, any of those things where they're trying to sue you for these rights or sue you for these new benefits or entitlements. That's one of those gray areas where they either moderately approve those changes, they gradually approve those changes, they want to conserve against making those changes, or they just radically deny those changes outright. So again, we got work to do. From the B1 perspective, I thought I did pretty good. If you agree, hit that like button and a rock with me. I didn't see any. I looked back through. I didn't see any names of the companies anybody would be more interested in hearing more about. So sounds like we good there. I didn't just say something just to be saying it. I checked back in, and nobody in the chat said they talk a little bit more about this company. Somebody said WWE stock is doing quite well. All right, so that time is my time, and I'm out. Yeah.